Melchizedek was king of Salem and priest of the highest God. He met Abraham, it says, who was returning from the royal massacre and gave him blessing. Abraham, in turn, gave him a tenth of the spoils. Melchizedek means king of righteousness. Salem means peace. So he is also king of peace.
King of peace.
See where I'm getting here? Who's this sound like?
Interesting.
Melchizedek towers out of the past without record of family ties, no account of beginning or end. Who's that sound like? See what I mean? In this way, he is like the Son of God, one huge priestly presence dominating the landscape always.
Sunday.
Welcome, everyone, to Beers with Jesus, Todd's World. I'm Todd. Carrie's with me every week. We are walking through the stories of the Bible. We read the message because the message is the best. If you don't read the message and you're just getting introduced to it, lucky you are.
I know. Check it out. It was new to me when this all began, and look at me now. No, I do like it. It's good for the way that we do this. It's really good.
We focus on the stories, and the message is very narrative driven, and it just works really well for what we do.
Yeah.
And I like just walking through. Like, we went through the book of Mark when we first started. We went through the book of Acts, and now we're going through the book of Genesis, which I love.
Action-packed Genesis.
My hope is that at the end of this, if people stick with us, well, first of all, if you're with us for a show, you're like, you have a feel for the story of that particular chapter we're dealing with. But if you stick with us for a book, my hope is that by the end of that, you have a decent grasp, at least of the story that's going on. You know, like you can say, I understand Genesis. At least I understand the story. Not that I understand every single thing about it, but I get kind of the general narrative. And a lot of people, I don't know how many people, it's not taught that way a lot. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it never is, but it's not.
Right. Especially this part. And I was going to say, I was going through a couple weeks ago, I was going through a wholesale club. It's like a Costco, but it's a regional. It's called BJ's. Do you have BJ's up there?
No.
But it's like a Costco.
Not in that context. Speaking of.
I still, laughing is so difficult.
Oh, laughing. Gary's got a rib problem.
We're both playing hurt. Your eye looks better.
A little better.
We're getting there.
BJ's is just
it's a wholesale club, like a Costco.
Like Sam's or Costco
Sam's.
or whatever. Okay. All right.
So I was passing by.
I never heard of them.
Passing by the book table, and I saw this. It looked like a hardcover graphic novel. It looked like a comic book, but thick.
Okay.
And it was someone has put the Bible into this like kind of comic book format. And I thought about it, and I was like, man, I'm kind of curious to see Genesis because so much is happening in it. It makes me wonder. Yeah, maybe I'll check it out next time I'm
there you go.
Walking by. I was in a hurry, but it's stuck in my head. So
no, that's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, it's great.
What we try to do is just take it and talk about stories, kind of get it. I mean, I'm not going to say bring it down to our level per se. We do. So this is Beers with Jesus is once a week.
Yeah.
We do also the Wildly Opinionated News Hour. We do that every other week. So this was our week that we did it. And that drops on Tuesdays. Beers with Jesus drops on Wednesdays. So check out Wildly Opinionated News Hour. They are somewhat different shows. As Pastor Darrell liked to point out to me this week that I don't know how a person could listen to Bible teaching and news hour from the same. And I'm like, dude, it's me. I'm the same person. I understand. There's a lot going on. Trust me. I live with me every day.
We are multifaceted.
So,
yeah.
But I think, you know what? And this passage today, we're in Genesis 14, we're story of Abram. And, I'm excited because I think this passage kind of shows you have a couple parallel things going on. You have like what's going on in the wide world politically for like the first half, and then you've got how it's relating to Abram and his call from God kind of in the second half. You know what I mean? So we kind of see things going concurrently at the same time. So But anyway, I think it works. You may not think it works. ToddsWorld.net is where the books are. Got a couple series out there. Insurrection and Witness are both fabulous series. Witness is kind of an end times series. Kind of like if you took the old Left Behind series and made them amazing books instead of stupid books. No, I'm just kidding. I've never read the Left Behind series.
I was going to say, wow, shots fired, right?
I kid.
Yeah, guys, Witness is very cool.
And Insurrection is fun. I have my memoir out there, which is Leaves That Blew Away. Great story. I'd appreciate that. 9 Mile Point. So check out some of the books, some of the merch. And definitely, if you enjoy the show, recommend us to people. We put clips out all the time. Send us. We're only going to grow if you guys help us in this particular algorithm. Mixing up Beers with Jesus and the Wildly Opinionated News Hour. Even the algorithms seem to struggle. So you guys need to help us.
Right. Well, we really appreciate you being here. We'd love for you to share. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this reading today is loaded up with names.
I know, and I'm on deck today. Carrie, we alternate our reading. Carrie read last week, so this week is mine. It's Genesis 14 in the Message. We might as well get at it.
Let's go.
And go. If you want to hear more banter from us after this, go log into the Wildly Opinionated News Hour, because it was a fabulous week. A little dark on the front end.
Oh my gosh,
moms are out there killing their kids.
I know,
but
it's rough.
The second half, we can have some fun.
I'm glad we have made it to today.
All right,
we've made it to Genesis.
Genesis 14. Abram and Lot in Genesis 13 kind of split up. They'd been traveling together for a while, and Abram, and it just got to be too much. They had too many people, too many servants, too many supplies. They just couldn't be together and make it work. So, Lot moved off towards Sodom and Gomorrah, which will become bigger stories a little later on. And in this, you've got some kings, and Lot gets captured. So let's get right into it. Chapter 14, Genesis.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Then this, and we're just going to go after the names. I don't know. You don't know any more than I do.
I know,
None of us
sorry.
know how to pronounce any of the names.
We did study them in advance. We apologize. Okay.
Then this, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim, went off to war to fight Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah,
sure,
Shemember, king of Zimboyim, the king of Bela, that is Zoar. The second group of kings, the attacked, came together at the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. That's the Dead Sea. For anybody familiar at all with Palestine and in Israel today, the Jordan River flows into the Dead Sea, and there's no outlet, and that's people can kind of float in it because the salt level is so high.
Right.
So that's what he's talking about. The Dead Sea's also expanded a lot, so probably where this took place is now covered in water. But at the time, way back then, wasn't as big. Okay. They had been under the thumb of Kedorlaomer for 12 years. In the 13th year, they revolted. So Sodom and Gomorrah and this group of towns had been ruled over by this larger group of kings, and they revolted. They'd been ruled for 12 years. In the 13th year, they revolted. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him set out and defeated the Raphaim in Ashtaroth Karnim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shavah, Kiriathim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran on the far edge of the desert. On their way back, they stopped at En Pishat, that is Kadesh, and conquered the whole region of the Amalekites, as well as that of the Amorites who lived in Hazan Tamar. That's when the king of Sodom marched out with the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. They drew up in battle formation against their enemies in the valley of Siddim, against Kedorlaomer, the king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Eleasar, the 4 kings against 5. The valley of Siddim was full of tar pits. When the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, they fell into the tar pits, but the rest escaped into the mountains. The 4 kings captured all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah, all their food and equipment, and went on their way. They captured Lot, Abraham's nephew, who was living in Sodom at the time, taking everything he owned with them. A fugitive came and reported to Abram the Hebrew. Abram was living at the Oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and Aner. They were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his nephew had been taken prisoner, he lined up his servants, all of those born in his household. There were 318 of them, and chased after the captors all the way to Dan. Abram and his men split into small groups and attacked by night. They chased them as far as Hobah, just north of Damascus. They recovered all the plunder along with nephew Lot and his possessions, including the women and the people.
Wow.
After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and his allied kings, the king of Sodom came out to greet him in the valley of Sheba, the king's valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of the high God and blessed him. Blessed be Abram by the high God, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be the high God who handed your enemies over to you. Abram gave him 1/10 of all the recovered plunder. The king of Sodom said to Abraham, "Give me back the people, but keep all the plunder for yourself." But Abram told the king of Sodom, "I swear to God, the high God, creator of heaven and earth, this solemn oath that I'll take nothing from you, not so much as a thread or a shoestring. I'm not going to have you going around saying, 'I made Abram rich.' Nothing for me other than what the young men ate and the share of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. They're to get their share of the plunder."
Wow.
So there you go.
It's
a lot going on.
Yeah, that's a big undertaking reading wise. Okay.
That's a mouthful.
It
Carrie just
was.
said good job. It sounds a little sarcastic. I'm just kidding, guys. She said I sound sarcastic when I say she does a good job. And she does a fabulous job all the time. I really am 100% sincere about that. But if you listen to the Wildly Opinionated News Hour, on occasion I can come off a little sarcastic. What do you think, Carrie? A lot going on.
There's a lot going on. So I've heard of some of these places, some of these people, but this is not a story before today I was familiar with.
Yeah.
And so clarify for me, and maybe for everyone listening too. Someone came and told Abram like what had happened to Lot, and Abram gathered his people, and they just basically went on a rescue mission, kind of freed him and got back everything that they had stolen. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah. So these kings, these were there 4 kings. They came and
attacked.
And now
5.
they've been on a year-long campaign, is what it seems like. And all along the way, they've been conquering places, and wherever they go, they're conquering. And then they finally get to this kind of Dead Sea, the Salt Sea area, the plains, where where then the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and Zoar and everybody are going to come out. And they're going to fight them, and then they lose clearly. So the Chedorlaomer, his band of kings his army seems to have been very powerful.
Right.
They ruled over these kings for 12 years prior to this. They revolted in the 13th year. In the 14th year, they, on their entire way down, they're capturing a bunch of territory, or they're recapturing, or doing whatever they do. They come here, and then they finish off the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and the armies, and they take everything, all the food, all the booty. Like a pirate.
Right. All their valuables, all their supplies, everything.
All the people. They're taken off and to be enslaved, probably, I assume.
Right.
Or off into exile or whatever. And Lot's part of that.
Okay.
And so you have this whole, my guess is that this news of these wars and these armies on the move and everything else, I would guess that kind news of those sorts kind of dominated the region. You know what I mean? Like if you picture
Right.
watching like Game of Thrones or something and all the different things going on, or House of
Yeah,
Dragon.
they probably would receive word that this campaign had just struck, this kingdom over here to the south or something.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I don't think they're that much different than us. Now listen, we've
Yeah.
got instant information, so we have everything. So I think we have a fascination that is more easily fed. But I think that same fascination with political events and nations and nation states, that's always been there. It's just it wasn't fed quite as instantaneously. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it took a while, but also the
Yeah.
travel took a while as well. So
But
this was a pretty big group.
I think. I mean, it sounds like.
And so Abraham's
Certainly
300
massive
some.
compared to Abraham's 318.
Right. Okay. I was going to say, like, this is a small number of
that
people
doesn't count his allies and whatever men they had.
Oh, true. Okay.
So we don't know exactly the size
That's
of
right.
Abraham's force, but you do get the feeling that when Melchizedek, who we're going to spend some time on Melchizedek, which is kind of a weird thing. He kind of shows up just out of the blue, and you're not going to see him. He doesn't ever show up again in an actual story. He does show up again in a psalm about the Messiah, and then in Hebrews, there's a lot of talk about Melchizedek, the high priest, as a type of Christ, the high priest. So we're going to get into all of that.
Okay.
But this is the only time he shows up in an actual story.
Okay.
In the entire Bible.
Okay, so he's present here in this story, but his legacy lives on.
Yes.
He's known, like his stories of him were probably passed down then. If you say he turned up in Hebrews and in the Psalms.
Well, yeah, I'm going to make the case. I think that Melchizedek is Jesus, a theophany of sorts. I think that's what he is.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's how he's treated in Hebrews. So,
is there something you wanted to cover before we talk about this?
Yeah,
about him?
On the one side, you have all this. What I was trying to get to is you have all this political machinations going on, and this kind of it works a little bit with what we talked about, where we do both Beers with Jesus and we do news, because we spend some time on the news of the day and on worldviews and on everything else. But I think the most important thing that we do is Beers with Jesus. In my opinion, I spend more time on it than anything else. I love news, but news is pretty much improv.
Right.
I spend about an hour before news.
It's definitely improv for me. I was going to say, I spend way more time with Jesus during the week than I do the news anymore.
Which is good, I think.
It is good.
I think
it's good.
I think we see Abraham. That was part of what I was curious about in this passage.
Okay.
Is Abraham in his approach to all the political machinations going on in the day? He doesn't seem very involved in all of these kings and all of the, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, he gets involved when it personally affects him.
Okay.
And he'll go and he'll save, when the right time came up. But Abraham's not trying to build a kingdom for himself, maybe, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Is he under, let me put it this way. He obviously doesn't concern himself deeply with,
right. He doesn't seem to.
No. But where he has set up his homestead, is that under one of these kings?
I don't think so.
Okay. This is just kind of free.
I think he's
neutral zone.
Yeah, I think he's kind of his own man out here. I get the same feeling about his allies. You know, the Oaks of Mamre, and you had Eshcol and Aner. I get the feeling that they were, they were not part of these kingdoms. Like Lot had chosen the plains last week. Remember?
Yeah.
Him and Abram split up, and Lot, as a man of Sodom, it becomes clear he was part of this kingdom of Sodom. I mean, that's why he's out there fighting with them. You know what I mean? He considers, like we consider ourselves an American. So if America goes to war, we're going to war. If we get captured, we get captured. If you're a POW, you're captured under the American flag. I think that's Lot. Lot was part of Sodom. He was a respected, I don't know how much time had passed at this point, probably a fair amount. He's a respected elder in Sodom. And Sodom revolts. Lot's part of that. Sodom loses. These kings lose. Lot becomes part of the losers and the prisoners, and everything gets taken. You know what I mean? So Lot, I think, was a lot more involved in world affairs than Abram, is my point. It seems
and this is at least 14 years later, it sounds like. Well, at least since this
it's been a while,
fighting was going on. Okay.
So,
okay.
I think that's interesting. I don't know. We occasionally will throw out a term like the Christian nationalist. I don't really know what it means because it seems to be a little bit hard to get a handle on to me.
A Christian nationalist? You talking about today in 2026?
Yeah, but it does seem like they care more about political ends than
I see.
than maybe we have classically or whatever. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. What do you think? It makes me wonder if the way that Abraham is kind of living kind of apart, and he's separate and he's apart from the culture, but he still is part of the culture, and at certain times and in certain seasons he's got to come in and it seems like rescue that very culture that he isn't even that much a part of. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know. I think that Abram at this point knows that his mission here, his purpose is led by God. God's told him, I mean, he's led him to here. He's told him, he's made promises to him about what he's going to do with his future. So I don't know, maybe you just be like, if you heard about these kings are over here doing this, Abram's probably like, that just doesn't concern me.
Yeah, that's the impression I get. That even when he goes to Egypt and he has the thing with Sarah's wife, and then he's gonna do it again.
Right.
It still doesn't seem. It never seems like Abraham's part of Egypt. He's not part of Egypt like Joseph is eventually at the end of Genesis. You know what I mean? Abraham lives a life set apart. He's been called by God. God's going to make a nation out of him. He's left his country. He's left his family. God's emptied him. God isn't concerned all that much with the political stuff going on around Abram. His focus is on Abram. Now, when it comes time for Abram to go rescue Lot, he does it. And as Christians, there may come times where we're called to go rescue our culture or whatever. You know what I mean? And we do that, but that's not our primary focus. Does that make sense? So we don't get up.
Sure.
You don't go to church and expect to hear a Trump rally. Make sense?
Yes.
But we've mixed that up.
Yeah, you're separating. Yeah, we do. That's interesting. Maybe it's just with like in our culture, again, this is kind of more of a news topic, but how politics and the culture around our political divides kind of has bled into, kind of seeped into every area of our lives.
It has.
Yeah, it's kind of like cast this shadow over everything, and it's almost like that's how we say all the time, like, oh man, like this is being politicized. This isn't really a political issue. Everything is. So yeah, it's almost like it's just casting this wide shadow over everything. This is a good reminder that you can just get involved when it's really important. Abram, it doesn't have to be ruling your life. God should be leading your life, not whatever king is battling for another, expanding their kingdom.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. But I mean,
Abraham seems to have so little interest. In fact, I wouldn't even say that he doesn't have a lot of interest. That's actually how I would describe Jesus. If you read the Gospels, I would describe Jesus as being singularly uninterested in anything that resembles the political or the work of the world. You know, he's just
like he gives it no.
It just doesn't seem to penetrate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think that's true. In Jesus, you don't see a lot of that.
I mean, we could do that today, but I think you also have to be responsible. But we're not Jesus.
I just think Abraham's a good example of keeping the focus where it needs to be, while at times needing to make forays into the political. And when you do, hopefully you're successful. That's what Abraham was. You know what I mean? Hopefully you can rescue who you're after.
Right. And according to the priest, it was like God blessed him with the victory, which was interesting.
Now let's talk Melchizedek.
Okay.
Melchizedek, there's Jewish traditions that believe Melchizedek was Shem, which would have probably made him the oldest person living on the earth at that point. That would have been Noah's sons. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look, he lived a long time, and he did probably overlap this far.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like Shem to me.
Okay.
But you got to start with that. It's a Jewish tradition.
Okay.
A lot of these books were Jewish books, so you want to give some. But at the same time, you got to remember that the Jews killed Jesus. Jews are not big Jesus fans, is my point. So if Melchizedek was Jesus or was a type of Jesus, the Jews might miss that. It's a distinct possibility.
Well, I think you've already answered my question when he's talking about being a priest, priest of the high God. It's like, is he a Jewish priest? And
he seems to be completely.
But I mean, they're talking about God, like the God we talk about.
Yeah, but Melchizedek uses a term that isn't used, I don't think, anywhere else, and it wasn't used by Abraham before, which is the high God. It's like in Hebrew, it's El Elyon or something.
Okay.
And Abraham had known God and interacted with God as Yahweh,
right?
Jehovah. That was kind of how the Jews knew God. Melchizedek seems to be a representative of the Most High God, but outside of Judaism. He's not part of that tradition. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's real interesting because it says, after Abraham returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and the allied kings, the king of Sodom came out and meets him. So they meet at this Valley of the Kings. And what I think is interesting is, you said, did Abraham, was he living or functioning under the rulership of a king or a nation state or something at the time?
Right.
I don't think he was, but I think that because he was living in God's kingdom, I think he recognized Melchizedek as God's high priest.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It says he gave a tithe to Melchizedek, which would generally have meant like a tenth of the plunder or whatever, like 10%.
Right.
But this is the only time we ever see Abram do this. Jacob also does it once.
Okay.
And what it seems like, that would have been a normal tribute at the time to pay to a king.
Okay.
So I think that what's being shown here is that Abraham recognizes Melchizedek as his high priest, the high God, as a king under the high God.
And I wanted to say also, I forgot that he's also called the King of Salem here.
He is.
Melchizedek. Okay. So, yeah. So the 10% is like maybe at that time a customary payment to honor who you would recognize as.
Yeah, and I think that's why Abraham did it. But in 3 verses, there's a couple things that are interesting. He brings out the bread and the wine. We know, especially as a Catholic, how integral those become to both Judaism and to Christianity going forward. Jesus breaks the bread and the cup, and this is my body. Do this in remembrance of me, right? So there's some right out of the gate in just a tiny little story. There's a bunch of things that would seem to identify Melchizedek with the Messiah. Okay, let's go.
Interesting. Okay.
We don't often go super deep on some biblical things, but I want to run through just a couple chapters.
Okay.
The Melchizedek next comes up in Psalm 110, which is a psalm written by David about the Messiah. And I'll read the first, it's into the 4th verses. So the Psalm 110 begins, "The word of God to my Lord, sit alongside me here on my throne until I make your enemies a stool for your feet." So this is God talking to Jesus, is the idea, the Messiah. "You were forged a strong scepter by God of Zion. Now rule, surrounded by enemies. Your people will freely join you, resplendent in holy armor, on the great day of your conquest. Join you at the fresh break of day. Join you with all the vigor of youth. God gave his word and he won't take it back. You're the permanent priest, the Melchizedek priest." The Lord stands true at your side, crushing kings in his terrible wrath, bringing judgment on the nations, handing out convictions wholesale, crushing opposition across the wide earth. The kingmaker put his king on the throne. The true king rules with head held high. So that's Psalm 110. And he says that the Messiah is a permanent priest, the Melchizedek priest. Okay?
Okay, interesting.
Now we're going to go to Hebrews. These are basically where it talks about Melchizedek elsewhere in the Bible from this little 3-verse story. The author of Hebrews, where's it at? He starts in chapter 5. And he says, okay, no one elects himself to dishonored position. He's called to it by God, as Aaron was. He's talking about a high priest. Hebrews is where we get this idea of Jesus as our high priest, interceding and representing us to God.
Okay.
And where he was tempted like we are, except without sin. So we have a high priest who's touched by our iniquities. He's touched by our failures. He has grace for us because he's one of us, is the idea.
Got it.
So towards the beginning of chapter 5 says, neither did Christ presume to set himself up as high priest, but was set apart as the one who said to him, you're my son. Today I celebrate you. In another place, God declares, you're a priest forever in the royal order of Melchizedek. While he lived on earth anticipating death, Jesus cried out in pain and wept in sorrow as he offered up priestly prayers to God. Because he honored God, God answered him. Though he was God's son, he learned trusting obedience by what he suffered, just as we do. We've read that verse before. Then, having arrived at the full stature of his maturity and having been announced by God as high priest in the order of Melchizedek, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who believingly obey him. Then he's going to say, listen, I got a lot more to say to you about this. And he's going to spend about a chapter and a half talking about how he just wishes they could say it, but they're too stupid. They don't understand enough about God yet for him to get into all this. If only they were more now. That's kind of how he gets into it for a little while.
That's funny.
Kind of blasts them out for being like they should be more mature in the word than they are. He should be able to go over more than he can with them, kind of. We don't know who the author of Hebrews is.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say, who's the author of Hebrews?
We don't know. Probably what got it in the canon is the belief that Paul was the author, but now I think by and large scholars don't believe Paul was, because if so, it would be the only letter he never signed. And then there's some other things that don't really read like Paul.
Others. Okay.
Anyway,
interesting. Okay.
Back to chapter 7. We get back in Hebrews chapter 7. We're back to Melchizedek again. So there's way more about Melchizedek in Hebrews than there is in Genesis. But the only story in the whole Bible is the 3 verses that we read in Genesis.
Right.
So Hebrews 7. Melchizedek was king of Salem and priest of the highest God. He met Abraham, it says, who was returning from the royal massacre, and gave him blessing. Abraham, in turn, gave him a tenth of the spoils. Melchizedek means king of righteousness. Salem means peace. So he is also king of peace.
King of peace.
See where I'm getting here? Who's this sound like?
Interesting.
Melchizedek towers out of the past without record of family ties, no account of beginning or end. Who's that sound like? See what I mean? In this way, he is like the Son of God, one huge priestly presence dominating the landscape always. You realize just how great Melchizedek is when you see that that Father Abraham gave him a tenth of the captured treasure. Priests descended from Levi are commanded by law to collect tithes from the people. So now he's talking about the Jewish religion, which came after Abraham, obviously. It wasn't until Moses. To collect tithes from the people, even though they are all more or less equals, priests and people having a common father in Abraham. But this man, talking about Melchizedek, a complete outsider, collected tithes from Abraham and blessed him, the one to whom the promises had been given. In acts of blessing, the lesser is blessed by the greater. How many people are in Jewish history greater than Abraham, or looked at as greater than Abraham?
Mm-hmm.
Or look at it this way. We pay our tithes to priests who die, but Abraham paid tithes to a priest who the scripture says lives. Ultimately, you could even say that since Levi descended from Abraham, who paid tithes to Melchizedek, when we pay tithes to the priestly tribe of Levi, they end up with Melchizedek.
Okay.
And then he's going to go on. I'm going to skip a few verses, but the Melchizedek story provides a perfect analogy. Jesus, a priest like Melchizedek, not by genealogical descent, but by the sheer force of resurrection life, he lives, priest forever in the royal order of Melchizedek. The former way of doing things, a system of commandments that never worked out the way it was supposed to, was set aside. The law brought nothing to maturity. Another way, Jesus, a way that does work, that brings us right into the presence of God, is put in its place. I think I've read almost everything the Bible has to say about Melchizedek to you.
Mm-hmm.
Melchizedek is different. All of Hebrews centers around the writer telling us how much greater Jesus is than Abraham, than Jacob, than all these patriarchs of the Bible. There's only one person that it talks about as being as great or great on a level with Christ, and it's Melchizedek. I think Melchizedek was Jesus.
Very interesting.
And what I wondered as I read this is if there was a kind of another bookend thing that we talked to. We had Babel in chapter 11, Genesis chapter 11, where the drive of men is to build their way to God. And then we have Abram, and what we see with Abram, and we see it with Melchizedek, we're going to see it again. It's not named Melchizedek, but God shows up. We see God coming down to man. We see God coming to Abraham. It's not about us making our way to God. It's about God descending to us. And that's the story of Jesus. That's why I feel like all of this whole Melchizedek thing, I think is Jesus right at the front end, right before Jesus predates Judaism. Before God ever made a great nation, before the kings, before the law, before the sacrifices, Jesus was there. He's not an afterthought. This was the way. This was plan A the whole time, I guess is my point. What do you think, Carrie? Now that I've pontificated, it's Carrie's turn.
I'm fascinated. I feel like the biggest supporting references are the bread and the wine, that he's the king of Salem, and Salem means peace, king of peace.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I don't know, it's pretty compelling. I like it.
Yeah,
And I think
and he brings refreshment to us. That's even to Abraham. If you'll notice, Melchizedek isn't involved in the battles, even though it says God handed his enemies over to him. But Jesus shows up after Abraham has fought the battle, after he's won the battle, and he shows up with refreshments, with fellowship. Maybe I think that's kind of how to look at bread and wine. Whenever Jesus shows up with bread and wine, why is it that God, he walked with Adam and Eve in the cool of the garden? There's something about God that wants fellowship. That was the point of the whole thing. And I think that bread and wine eating together, I think that kind of represents that fellowship,
Right. I was thinking that it was Melchizedek who said to give me the people, but keep the plunder. But that was actually,
Sodom.
Yes, King of Sodom.
And you get a really strong juxtaposition, a difference in attitudes between Abraham's deference, and you could almost say worship. It doesn't really say worship, but the way that he treats Melchizedek, the king of Salem, compared to how he treats the king of Sodom. He doesn't seem to have anything but contempt for the king of Sodom. I don't want you. I don't want any of your stuff. I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want you going around talking to anybody saying I had anything to do with you or you had anything to do with making me rich. Like, that's a big change in how Abraham is addressing the one compared to the other.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't understand where that came from. I mean, it didn't sound especially angry when you read it, but like you said, contrasting with the way he interacts with Melchizedek compared to, that is.
And knowing what's coming for Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Down the road, we're going to see. My only point in this is once we finally get there, I think Abraham, I don't think, we talked about this last week, I don't think Abraham would have gone in the direction of the plains in Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't think he was interested in it. Lot was. Lot was captivated by such things. I think Abraham knew Sodom and Gomorrah for what they were and wanted nothing at all to do with them. And so you kind of get that. I think that it shows a good picture. So besides the Melchizedek thing and Jesus, I think that's the biggest part, is God coming down and kind of God putting his stamp on Abram. Abram's my man. All of this political BS going on, not a whole lot of worry and concern about any of that.
Right. It's another example of Abram resisting all of the worldly influences. He doesn't want he doesn't want valuables out of this.
Right.
It's just not where his values are rooted.
Yeah.
Abram is focused on higher things.
Right. So I don't know. What do you think, Gary? That's kind of what I was.
That's really interesting.
Taken out of it was those two things. It was the fact that God's showing up. I think Jesus is showing up right away, and I think that's real important. Because it's important for people to understand that Jesus, the cross, all of this predates Judaism, and it predates Israel, and it predates the law. Like this was the original plan right from the beginning, from Eden.
I mean, yeah. It's weird. It's weird to think of it that way, as predating Eden, the Garden of Eden.
Well, I think it was, though, because God isn't bound by time.
Right. I was going to say, through our chronological lens, it seems weird.
Right.
But it's also difficult for us to understand that Jesus and God are one but separate. And but it makes sense if you can kind of peer through that challenge.
Yeah.
That the earthly challenge, to see it that way. It makes sense. It makes sense that Jesus has been a part of this from the beginning.
Well, John says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and without the Word, nothing was made that was made. Like, Jesus is right there at creation. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and the Spirit, of course, the Spirit's there hovering over the chaos, the watery chaos at the beginning of Genesis.
And the fact that we're told we are made in God's image, that makes sense of Jesus's existence also.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That incarnation, like we've talked about last week, it echoes all the way back in the story.
Right.
That's where I think you see. I think when God shows up and wrestles with Jacob, I think that's a theophany. I think they call it a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ, kind of.
Wow.
In the story. So
interesting.
I think it's cool. And I also think the other thing about this, I think there's, I don't know if a warning is the right word, but there's something to consider when it comes to, like I said, we had the two halves of the chapter, and you've got all the political and all the nation states and everything that all the world is worried about is happening on this end. And then I think there's something with a Christian that our paths are going to cross that, but don't make mega Christianity. Is that fair?
Oh,
do you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Like, your paths will cross sometimes, but that's not our purpose. Our purpose is not the political. Go back and read the Gospels. Jesus' path occasionally crossed, although not till almost he's towards the end when they're getting ready to kill him.
It actually usually clashed.
Yeah. So we're on different tracks. I think that's good to remember from Hebrews too, because from that Hebrews Hall of Faith, Hebrews 11, we go back to that a lot. We were in Hebrews already, but when it says that through acts of faith they toppled kingdoms, made justice work, took the promises for themselves. They were protected from lions, fires, sword thrusts, turned disadvantage to advantage, won battles, routed alien armies. Women received their loved ones back from the dead. There were those who, under torture, refused to give in and go free, preferring something better, resurrection. Others braved abuse and whips, and yes, chains and dungeons. We have stories of those who were stoned, sawed into, murdered in cold blood. Stories of vagrants wandering the earth in animal skins, homeless, friendless, powerless. The world didn't deserve them, making their way as best they could on the cruel edges of the world. The world didn't deserve Abraham. All of this, you know what I mean?
Say that again, making their way on the cruel edges of the world?
Yeah. Not one of these people, even though their lives of faith were exemplary, got their hands on what was promised. God had a better plan for us, that their faith and our faith would come together to make one completed whole. Their lives of faith not complete apart from ours, because Jesus is the center and the focus of all of it. Their faith was looking forward to Jesus. Our faith is looking back to Jesus, but it's all one whole. It's all Jesus in the order of Melchizedek. He lives. What do you think?
Well said.
That's what I get out of this chapter. Did I miss anything?
No, I just really like that line. That's from Hebrews 11.
Yeah.
About them making their way on the cruel edges of the world. Because, we talk about it week to week. We say, what can we get from this? And it's hard sometimes. It's hard to be in this world, to function in this world.
But not of it. Isn't
that what Paul
says?
But not of it, yes.
Be in the world, but not of it.
Not of it. And that's a challenge always. And it's hard not to get, sucked in.
But you can kind of see it in Abraham a little bit. He did a pretty good job. Or Abram.
Right. Right. And I don't like to look at the world that way. I don't like to look at the world completely cynically and say that it's all cruel and evil and bad. I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of good in the world, but you can certainly get yourself sucked into those things, into the darkness. And so I like the idea that we can make our way. Like we can make our way on the edges of it, And
even in the midst of the world and in the midst of that conflict, Jesus will show up, and he'll show up in times of refreshment. He's going to show up with the bread and the wine. You know what I mean? And I think I like Abraham giving him 1/10 of the plunder, because it shows Abraham saying to Melchizedek, to the high God, there's no king but you. There's no king but Jesus. My king is you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then to go right into absolute, just, I think, disdain for the king of Sodom. I think
that's so interesting.
I think that juxtaposition is just, it's so good. It shows that Abraham values what matters. And we have such a hard time getting hung up because we see what goes on around us, and we think this is the most important thing. I often think if you had a good view of the politics and the hot topics at the time of Jesus, you'd think, oh my God, how could Jesus have not addressed any of these things? It's like he didn't even care. You know what I mean? Because he had bigger fish to fry, and we sometimes get caught up with the political and this temporal world being the most important, maybe. I don't know.
Right. So, one more thing about his disdain, as you said, for Sodom. When he denounces, he really makes his feelings known. He's so emphatic about it. He says, I swear to God, the high God, creator of heaven and earth, the solemn oath. Like he lays it on pretty thick.
I think part of that is he wants it to make it known, I'm not part of your coalition. Like, I did this and I rescued my nephew. Lot. But I'm not part of your group, bud. And I don't want you to think I am.
Right. He doesn't want him going back and proclaiming how wonderful Abram is to his people, like
but he's
battled on our behalf.
He doesn't want to be able, he doesn't want the king of Sodom to be able to go say to the people, well, look, I'm friends with Abram. No, that's not, that's not the point, And so I think, but then to come right back with Melchizedek and just he's not. My point in that, I get into this sometimes because I'm a highly disagreeable person, is Abraham isn't just disagreeable to all kings. When the high king, the high priest of the high king is there, Abraham is willing to submit and willing to bow the knee and say, you know what, God,
Right.
this is how you're leading. So there's a humility in it.
Right. Where he feels it aligns with what's right.
But
right. Interesting.
But these kings in the natural order who lord their authority over their people and whatever, he has zero interest in any of them. I feel like Abraham's attitude probably mirrors Jesus' attitude, and you know what I mean? Just
yes,
not interested.
No thanks. That's
well,
great.
I think we did good, Carrie. What do you think?
Yeah, thank you for taking us down that Melchizedek road, because I'm not familiar with the name. Sounds like he's mentioned a few other times, but it's not one
That's
that
it. Yeah, it's kind of a weird. It's weird. What's interesting is how much of an emphasis the writer of Hebrews puts on him, because we got this little 3-verse story, and then we got one little mention in Psalms, and then the writer of Hebrews just wraps this whole thing, and all of a sudden you realize this Melchizedek guy, he really mattered.
Right. And at one point when you read about him, it sounded like maybe they were making it a metaphor. But it's like, why would you make a metaphor out of someone so minor in Genesis if he wasn't minor?
Yeah.
Or if he was, rather. I think it's an indicator that he was not, is my point.
I agree.
That's really interesting. I'm curious who the AI overview says the author of Hebrews is.
There's a couple options. Priscilla and Aquila were hung out with Paul Aquinas, or not Aquinas. He was a Catholic guy. I'm forgetting one.
Okay.
There's a couple different options, but and I suppose it could have been Paul, although it'd be weird if it was Paul. Just because it wouldn't line up with the rest of Paul's writings very well. Be like reading a bunch of books by Stephen King, and then like you got a John Grisham thrown in, and you're like, this doesn't really sound like Stephen King. You know what I mean?
Got it. And why didn't he sign it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. Well,
guys, thank you for joining us. I think we did a great job today, Carrie. I think you did great.
You
not sarcastic at all. Think you did fabulous.
I think you did fabulous. No, seriously, sincerely, thank you for that insight into that aspect of it. That's I'm pretty curious about that stuff, because I love it when people draw parallels through the Bible, draw connections through the Bible.
There's a lot going on. Did you ever see that? Was it Jordan Peterson who has that big, huge graphic?
The chart.
It's like the Bible's the first hyperlinked thing, and he has all these links all the way through. Yeah, it's wild.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Well, listen, guys, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much
for being here. Come back next week.
Share with a friend.
Same time, same place, Beers with Jesus. Chapter 15 next week. We're pretty basic. It's not hard to figure out our pattern. It's a story after all.
We're going in order. That's great.
And
thanks, Todd.
Check out news if you haven't. Wildly Opinionated News Hour. And then Todd's World.net is where you'll find the books and stuff. So awesome. Thanks, Carrie. We will be back next week.
Good seeing you.
You too.
We'll be hopefully fully healed. We played hurt this week.
Maybe my eye won't be the beginning of Bell's palsy or something. All right.
Poor thing.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Gary.
Bye.